Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Behind the Scenes, where we peel back the curtain to discover how Vidyard customers are using video and Vidyard to accelerate their business and make more human connections. I'm Rebecca. I'm a content strategist here at Vidyard and your host for today. So every year, Vidyard hosts the Video and Business Awards in the fall. And this past year, we saw some amazing entries that showcased some really innovative and new ways of using video. And one of my favorites this year was a choose your own adventure style video from LinkedIn. So I knew I wanted to talk to the team behind this video and just talk to LinkedIn in general as a tool that all of us use on a day-to-day basis. So today, my dream is coming true. I'm speaking with Grace McDonald from LinkedIn, and hopefully I can get her to reveal some of her secrets and talk more about how she makes the most of all her content with video. So let's jump in. Welcome, Grace.
Hi, Rebecca. How are you? You've really built me up there.
Well, I'm well. How are you? Thanks so much for joining me.
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Good. Yeah, I mean, as I said, I am very curious. I mean, what it's like to work at LinkedIn. I feel like, as I said, it's something that most people feel very familiar with, but you are uniquely familiar with it. What's it like to work there and to do content marketing?
Yeah, so it's great. It's in the UK and Ireland, and I guess in the EMEA region. It's very friendly and a nice place to work. They give you a lot of room for growth. The people you work with are really, really strong. You're challenged the whole time. You have that kind of American tech Silicon Valley feel, but also much more regionalized. So each of our offices around the different countries in EMEA, they have their own flair, their own kind of look and feel and atmosphere when you walk into them, even down to the snacks that you get and stuff. They'll be local things. You'll get something different in Germany to what you get in Dublin or in France. So yeah, it's really, really good. I'm a content marketer for LinkedIn, and I've been on the LinkedIn team for nearly 6 years. So I haven't left since they opened the doors.
Wow. Okay, 6 years. Yeah, that's a pretty decent amount of time to become familiar with a place. And I'm sure you've seen a whole journey of things happening in those 6 years. Maybe that's a good place to start. When you first started versus now, I mean, maybe specifically talking about video, but can you speak to that? How has that journey been and what's changed in those 6 years?
Yeah, lots of things. When I joined, I'm based in the UK now, but when I joined, I was based in Ireland, and we were one building, a couple of small floors. Now we're building out a campus. So we have a big new building there that is stunning. And I think it houses something like 1,200, 1,400 people, a very big group. So it's grown by people quite quickly across the EMEA region as I've been here. From a video point of view, when I joined, we didn't have video on platform, which is crazy to think about. So video was new for us when it came online a couple of years ago. So I was there for that journey of us bringing video to our audience and to our members. And letting them start to play around with it from an organic perspective of people just going on and talking about their day-to-day to a business and B2B perspective, whereas kind of more the area that I play in.
Right on. Cool. So in terms of, like the way you use video when you first started using it or now, like, did you have any original goals or like problems that you were trying to solve with it? Or were you really just trying to figure it out?
Yeah, so there was a stage where video was a webinar and it was this like 60-minute long piece of content, and we might cut it up a little bit or we might just put the whole thing up and we're like, it's a video, yay. And I remember we had a big conversation about video as a content marketing team. So we're a small, lean team. And we decided we were going to put video into all of our deliverables for a year. So for all of our go-to-markets, we were going to have a video element. And that was great. It gave us a lot of stuff to play with and we enjoyed it so much. But the problem that we had was that we didn't really know what we were measuring. We didn't know where we were putting it. We were creating these videos and then we had these lovely videos that were all to best practice guidelines. They were beautiful. We put some good investment into them. We spent a lot of time on them. And sometimes they just sat in our inboxes. I was like, I don't actually know what to do with it. So that was a starting point. So obviously didn't last for very long. I remember brainstorms and meetings. We were like, how do we do this? How do other companies do this? We brought in experts to talk about it and really figure out where should these videos go, what works on what format, how do we measure it, how can we get the most out of it? And I think we're much further along in our journey now, and I've learned a lot over the last couple of years with our video experiences.
That's awesome. So, I mean, I think we'll get into the analytics and like how you're measuring that stuff a little later, but what kinds of videos do you use? Like, what's performing well for you currently, and or what are you leveraging?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I'm content marketer. So I'm going to speak about this specifically in the content marketing world of LinkedIn. There's lots of other different parts of the business in marketing. And then our sales team do loads of great things with video as well. So I won't speak for them. Maybe you'll get your wish again, Rebecca, and get more conversations with LinkedIn teams from different parts. From a content perspective, the two places or ways we use video is at the top of the funnel. We create a lot of videos to either promote or accompany some of our bigger go-to-markets. And when I say a go-to-market, that could be everything from an ebook to a franchise launch. So video will be an element of that, the deliverables that we build. We also do a lot with video on LinkedIn Live. So live streams similar to this one, which will be sitting more at the bottom of the funnel and into our ABM strategy, working with our clients to hero create them and champion them as experts in the marketing field where we operate. So kind of top to funnel, but we use different types of videos for the different parts of the funnel.
Right. So like, yeah, as you said, for anything new, you're going to do probably like a promo or explainer or something like that. Yeah. For LinkedIn Live, personal interest, where do you find the most success with those, or like when would you use a LinkedIn Live versus not?
Yeah, so LinkedIn Live is an interesting one. In EMEA, I run this show that's called Live with Marketers. It's very similar to this. We bring a couple of guests in, and I'm usually in your seat, Rebecca. So I get to be the one asking the questions and putting everyone else in the hot seat. That program works really well to, one, get interactions with clients that sometimes you wouldn't get. LinkedIn does, then the brand name opens a lot of doors for us, and we are very conscious of that and very grateful of that. But also when we do these live shows with our clients, we offer a white glove experience. So we want them to feel like they're walking into a real event and that they're doing it from the comfort of their home. So we do a lot of things to make sure they're comfortable, that they're enjoying the experience, that they know what's happening pre, during, and post show as well, because we will use that content in a lot of different ways too. And the thing that I find works really well with LinkedIn Live is coupling it with the LinkedIn Events. So LinkedIn Events is a relatively new feature that came out at the start of lockdown. So when I say lockdown, I'm thinking the global lockdown that we were all familiar with. We're all in different stages now, thankfully. But LinkedIn Events, coupling that with LinkedIn Live, gives you a more of a way to engage with your audience, because in the run up to the show, you can feed them extra content or maybe some research you're going to talk about. But on the flip side, you give the audience a chance to speak to the brand and speak to the speakers. And it changes it from a one-way discussion where maybe they can leave a comment or they can share to a two-way discussion where they actually can feed into the content development and what the questions are going to be. So really making sure that the member is involved and they're actually getting a lot out of the LinkedIn Live, rather than you or anyone trying to just drive content for the sake of content, which we've all been guilty of at times, definitely.
Fair. That sounds awesome. I have some homework to do for sure, because this is a fairly new venture for us here at Vidyard too. So I'm obviously always learning about all the tools that are available for me, like through LinkedIn and other tools. So that's good to hear. And I wanted to go back to something that you said about, like ways to use the content afterwards, because I feel like, sometimes, well, you don't want the live event to just be a one and done and you forget about it. You do it, you spend all this time prepping for it and engaging with people, and then it's done. So what's your kind of, you might do different things every time, but what do you do with that content after the fact?
Yeah, so that's somewhere we're still developing. We used to do these kind of live shows as a studio broadcast. So a lot of work went into the pre-production piece, and we had a little bit more control of the post because we had a couple of different camera angles to work with, or we could turn someone's mic off and all of that kind of stuff. You don't get all of that with a virtual show. So we're still learning and testing what we do. But I think as a standard, what I work on is straight away after the show, we'll get a transcript of the show. So we have a full readout of everything that was said, what was talked about. We will quickly develop a couple of quote assets. So something that, say, Rebecca said or I said, we'll have that rolled out really fast, just as a quick quote that can go onto social. And in the background, we're also working on creating a couple of shorter social videos. So cutting up the conversation to laser focus in on certain parts of the certain topics that were of interest to our audience, or we know are of interest to our audience, or just something that's really clever someone said, and we want to highlight that and be able to use that in a lot of different ways. And we'll push that out onto our social platforms as well, and also put some paid promotion against it if it is the right subject matter. The other thing we look at is moving it away from video format and actually doing some blogs off the back of the content. And depending how scripted you have your show, whether that's just based on the questions or your guests actually have their answers as well, you can nearly work on a lot of that during pre-production and during the show, and have it really quick to roll out afterwards. So we're testing lots of different things. And one thing we want to test, and we haven't got there yet, is to tear the audio off and try and put it onto a podcast, or just do sound bites. We haven't tested it. If anyone has, please let me know in the comments, because I would love to know more about that, or if there's anything else you've done. We're full of ideas. We just need to kind of get down and to work on them now.
Absolutely. Oh, that's great. Yeah. We're always trying to do the same thing, just trying to figure out how we can, instead of making more content, how can we get the most out of what we do have and the quality stuff that we spend our time on. So that's great. We're also thinking of doing, the sort of podcast version as well. And I know our blog team has converted some of their blogs into audio format, and that's actually performed pretty well for them, especially for our more popular blogs. But that's super interesting. Yeah. So I think, I guess that's another thing. It goes both ways, I guess. Would you say, so I know you had mentioned to me earlier that you convert written content into video. How's that process versus taking a video and turning it into a blog? What's your process for going the other way?
Both have their own challenges, definitely. I think taking from a video to a text-based blog or piece of content is probably a little bit easier because you can add more, where going the other way, taking a 15 to 20 page guide or even a long form article and trying to put that into video, you have to take a lot away, and you have to get the either animation or footage that you use, whether that's live action or stock, to do a lot of the storytelling for you. And that's one of the most challenging pieces. And I think some people really know that part of video very well, and they've learned it over time, or it's something they've always been good at. Someone like me, it's been a learning curve with my agencies who've been very patient with me to say, this is why we think we should do it this way, because it will develop the story of this 60-second video down from however many words you had in that long form blog or guide into something that's snackable, interesting, and drives the audience member or the viewer to actually go and download the piece of content. So there's lots of different ways you can look at it. You can look at breaking that full guide into multiple different parts with lots of different videos. The more standard thing that I would do is break it down into a little teaser video of this is coming, this is why you need to know about it, and also a longer video that kind of summarizes the content at a high level to drive them to download the full guide or the full piece of content. And that would live on the landing page and then also be tested against that short social video on our social platforms as well to see, does 60 seconds or 90 seconds work better than a 10 seconds? Because sometimes it does, depending on the meatiness of the topic, I think, as well.
Totally. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, it's all about testing and seeing what works and focusing on your true goal, I guess, different things work for different reasons.
There's lots of things I've learned about that in the last couple of years as well. Being a marketer in EMEA, I'm very lucky that I work with different languages. So I only speak English. Right. So we have French, German, Spanish. We work with our LATAM team who have Spanish and Portuguese. APAC has many different languages and also much more cultural nuances that we have to think of. So that's another piece of the puzzle that I've learned over time, and that my marketing team have been really good at educating me to remind me if I'm doing an animated video we want to localize. If there's lots of text embedded in an animation, it has to be redone for German, French, etc. So it's not as simple as just switching out subtitles or switching out a voiceover. There's a lot of different layers to think about inside these videos that definitely should come into your planning stage if you are thinking of localization later down the line.
Wow, good point. I feel like that's a whole other webinar or course that you could give just alone on diversifying that. Wow, that's very interesting. Yeah, it's not something I've had to do too much of yet, other than the obligatory like French content in Canada. But yeah, wow. Okay, cool. So I guess speaking of just developing content, I in the intro mentioned your choose your own adventure video, which I personally thought was super cool. Like, I love anything interactive. I love just like checking out all the new ways of using video. And so, yeah, that was one that's really caught my eye. So, I mean, maybe first for the audience, you will probably do a better job at explaining it than I could, but did you want to just give us an overview of what that project was and how, what it actually was, but then also why and how it came about?
Yes, of course. So this is my content baby. So you might have to stop me, Rebecca, if I'm going too detailed, because I love it. My colleagues have heard me talk about this a lot. So if they're on this call, they can tune out now. They know these details. So LinkedIn Advantage is a choose your own adventure video experience. And we think it's one of the first in this format for B2B. It takes inspiration from a lot of different B2C brands, but the most notable one is Black Mirror on Netflix, where they did the Bandersnatch TV movie. And that's where the inspiration had come from. It's like, okay, there's something clever we can do here with content. We can do it with text, or we can do it with video. Let's push the boundaries and do it with video. So the experience is 16 different videos that lead you just down 8 different paths of the day in the life of a marketer. So you are brought into the journey and you're asked a series of questions to understand, do you want to learn more about lead generation marketing? Do you want to learn more about organic marketing or brand awareness? And you go through the journey until you get to the end points where they tell you if you've done great in your marketing project or not. And I think the best thing I think about LinkedIn Advantage is that none of it is new content. It's all about LinkedIn and the ad space, but it's all reused content and recycled content from across the business and across my colleagues and our teams, our marketing teams, because we had all the content there. It was just a new way of telling those stories and bringing people into the experience. The whole program itself took probably 9 months of socialization and brainstorming and making sure we had the right people involved and the right messaging going to our clients. And the really nice thing about it now is that it tells you this great story about marketing on LinkedIn, and it's educational. There's no learning black hole, as I call it, that if you hear about anything they take about 5 minutes, the full path. If you hear about anything in the 5-minute path, on the next landing page you go to, there's a card there that tells you about cost per conversion or the insight tag. And the other thing that we've added just recently is a link to the LinkedIn Labs accreditation, which is a very new thing that our customer marketing team has launched as part of our education programs, where actually you can go on and get certified as a LinkedIn marketing specialist, ad specialist. So I'd recommend that everyone goes and does that. Just look up LinkedIn Labs accreditation. Or if you want to have a look at LinkedIn Advantage, you can just Google LinkedIn Advantage, choose your own adventure as well, and you'll be able to find that, both experiences there. But it's just about education and bringing video in and bringing in a much more playful experience. One thing we really try to do at LinkedIn is to inspire others to do this kind of stuff for B2B, because it can be seen as really boring and buttoned up quite often. And the great thing about that process, when we were doing the 9 months of strategy and figuring out how this could work, the big question we had was, okay, so LinkedIn is built in a very data secure way, because we have all of your information in there and we need to protect that at all costs. That's our our number one operating priority, which means we can't bring in a lot of new providers or new technology. It's quite difficult for us because it needs to go through very rigorous data and security checks. The good thing when we were trying to figure out how could we do this experience is that Vidyard had a solution, and we were already working with Vidyard. So you guys have a choose your own adventure template in the back end that we were able to leverage, and I was able to actually build that myself. So I was very impressed with Vidyard. I haven't been asked to say this, but it was great for me, a non-coder, someone who doesn't know how to do HTML or anything in the back end. I was able to just take the code and build out that experience and test it a long time before it went live. So thank you, Vidyard. You made my little content baby go live.
That's awesome. I didn't expect that, but it's always so great to hear. And yeah, that is a feature that I feel like it's so unique and it doesn't get used a lot. So when it's done well, it's really great to see. And yeah, I personally just love anything, like I said, interactive. And I just went back and redid it, before this chat, just to refresh my memory. And yeah, it's fun. It's like doing a quiz. Like, would you rather learn reading an article or doing a quiz or watching a video, or both combined? It's great. So,
and it's cool as well to see, because I think a lot of the messaging in B2B around video, but also wider, is that shorter is better, and that you should keep it under 60 seconds. And the next article you read is keep it under 30 seconds and 15 seconds. 6 seconds. You hear all of these metrics, these times thrown around. And it was nice for me to experience that for LinkedIn Advantage. We could push that experience to about 5 minutes it takes if you do one path. If you go to do more, it's going to take longer. But we have about 89% attention rate. So people are doing over 4.5 minutes of the experience. We're getting great views. We have a 50x ROI on this already. So the metrics are backing up the hypothesis that this experience works and this technology works. And now we're just looking through the business to see where else can we bring in this kind of Advantage Light to do more choose your own adventure, and just make sure that the audience has control of what they're consuming rather than us pushing it on them.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great. Thanks for sharing some of those results. That was kind of something I was going to ask as well. So that's good to know. Yeah, I agree. There is no hard and fast rule about how long a video should be. It totally depends what it is and what it's for too, because depending where that customer is in their journey, they may be more willing to consume more. And of course, if you make it engaging, then that's great. Yeah, that's awesome. So it sounds like, yeah, that was a success for you, and it's still going. I did share the link in the comments for anyone who wants to check it out for themselves. So yeah, I mean, my other kind of questions that I'd like to know from you is how, like, it sounds like you do make a lot of video and you use it in many different places throughout your marketing. So how do you scale that? And including who actually makes these videos?
Yeah, so it is case by case a lot of the time in terms of scale. But we do have best practice that we're sharing across the team the whole time. For LinkedIn Live, so when we're doing a live broadcast, we are trying to advocate for a very high standard of broadcast across the platform. So we need to obviously take that on board ourselves as well. So we actually have a really strong team working globally called the LinkedIn Media Production Team. We're an internal team. A lot of them actually come from live TV streaming, like sports, all that kind of high energy stuff. And they work with us to make sure that the streams that we're putting out on LinkedIn are of a really strong standard so that we can inspire our audience to do the same and our clients. For videos, then, we actually work with really strong agencies across the globe to create those. We don't have a video agency in-house that I work with specifically, but we do have some in the States who work on kind of our broader brand video outputs, and they're really, really strong. And that team is just growing and growing. So at the moment, we don't have it in-house, but I could see us moving it in-house eventually, because we are attracting the type of talent that's able to do this really, really well.
Right. That's awesome. Yeah. We do a mix as well. So it just depends what you're looking to get done. And yeah, I know it can also shrink and grow, sometimes you'll need more and sometimes you need to expand. So that's great to hear. Do you have any, if there was one piece of advice that you could maybe give yourself a year ago or maybe even 6 years ago when it comes to using video, what would that be, if any?
Yeah, so I think it's advice I'd give myself, and it's also advice I'd give our clients these days as well. Video has a bad reputation for being insanely expensive, and it doesn't have to be like that. There's some really good solutions out there now for you to do video in a much more scrappy way if your budgets aren't able to stretch to working with an agency who are specifically working on video or anything like that. So there's so many different platforms. There's so many different solutions for stock video that's coming out of teams like Shutterstock and all these kind of things as well. So there's lots of different ways to do video. There's really no reason not to do it if it comes to budget. It's just a learning curve, I think. And video can be really enjoyable to work on. It's so dynamic. You can do so many different things, from product to customer stories to everything in between. And it can be as simple as starting with just recording videos internally of your team and telling a little bit of the background story of what you were doing for a marketing campaign, or using it for sales to get messaging out to a client or a prospect. So video comes in a million different forms. Don't be afraid of it and try it, and then just test and learn. I think that's the most important thing as well. And make sure that you don't do it once and just be like, let's just do it the same template always. See what works with your audience and your team.
Give it a go. Yeah, that's what I always tell people too. It doesn't have to be as complicated as you might think. So yeah, I mean, I think earlier in our chat, I know when you mentioned how video used to be a webinar and you did like a 60-minute webinar, and now we've seen this huge transition. Do you have any existing challenge today that you see being that shift in the future? What are we doing today, or what is your challenge today that you feel is going to be the next kind of shift or change?
I think the challenge today is coming back to something that you mentioned earlier, is creating, and maybe not taking stock and working on what we already have and using that in different ways. So I think for most businesses, there's only so many ways we can tell our business story and talk about our products. And we tend to think with content widely, and also video content, that it has to be new for it to be important or to be part of your deliverables, or that it's going to drive impact. It's not always the case. And it also means if you start using stuff that you already have and remixing it and repurposing it, there's a better story to tell, you save money, and your return on investment is going to go down. So I think that's one of the challenges that I experience at the moment, is just being more clever with the video that we have and seaming it all together.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes sense to me. That's definitely what we're focusing on right now too. All right. Well, I guess that kind of wraps it up. Do you have any final advice for people, or is there anything, I know you host a show, is there anything that you do to like pump yourself up or get yourself feeling ready to be comfortable on camera?
It takes experience, definitely. The first few that I did, I was terrified. Over time, you realize you're just talking to people you've already probably talked to because you've done briefing calls. So I think if you can break it down into the micro steps like that, it's helpful. But for me, I think it's just thinking about the audience and what they're getting out of it, rather than if I sneeze or knock something over. I'm just a vessel. It doesn't really matter what I do. So I think if you think about it that way and just make sure you're delivering value in what you say, it makes for the best shows.
I love that.
Good job, Rebecca. Well done.
It definitely takes practice, I have to say. It's yeah, I still get stage fright. But yeah, all right. Well, thank you so much, Grace. I think that you've given us a lot to think about today. And yeah, it was great. I feel like we have so much more we could talk about, but thank you so much for taking the time. And do you have any parting words, anything you'd like people to check out while we have you on the air?
Well, of course, check out LinkedIn Advantage. I would love to hear what you think of that one. If you want to add me on LinkedIn as well, you are more than welcome. I've just shared today actually a show reel from our Live with Marketers shows, which kind of talks about seaming together that content a bit more, or shows an example of how we do that. And Rebecca, I can't wait to see what you do in post. I'm going to steal your ideas.
Awesome. Likewise. I'm going to go check out all of your stuff. I'm a fan. So thanks, Grace. And we'll talk to you later.
Thanks so much, everyone.